Welcome to the podcast, A Drink with Derek. Follow comedian Derek Richards on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe to his YouTube channel and watch all episodes of the podcast. Now grab a drink and join your host, Derek Richards.
It's a drink with Derek. Derek Richards here in Las Vegas. My guest, whom you just saw, brilliant singer, actor, Aaron DeJesus, who would normally be in New York right now, but he's up in St. George, Utah, a kept man as his wife is performing. His wife, Gail Bennett, who is an amazing singer as well, performing over there. So you're just relaxing with your daughter and enjoying life.
It's amazing, yeah.
Not a lot of people would have that attitude. With you coming in, because you've been in. Now I pulled up your resume here. You've been in Monty Python's Spam-A-Lot, and this is a brief overview. Spam-A-Lot, Wicked the Musical, Disney's The Lion King, and spent the last almost 10 years starring as Frankie Valli in Jersey Boys on Broadway. That is pretty cool.
It's amazing. Thank you very much. I feel very lucky and very blessed to have had the success and the career that I've had. To clarify, so my time with Jersey Boys has been almost 10 years. I started that time in the Las Vegas company, actually. And I was there for 3.5 years. In Las Vegas, I played Joe Pesci, the Joe Pesci role, which understudied Frankie. I did go on a fair amount. And then when I left the Las Vegas company, I went on tour and began playing Frankie Valli full time, and I've been doing that ever since. I toured for 2 years across North America, and then when the show reopened in New York, just off-Broadway, they brought me in to play Frankie there, and so I've been doing that since the reopening in 2017. 17? Yeah, 17.
I know, time is lost right now. Coming out of the pandemic, everybody. I tell everybody this. It's like, that 1 year that we lost feels like it was 3 years.
Right? But sometimes it also feels like it was like 2 months.
Yeah, exactly.
It's weird.
Well, now I'll say this. I mean, I've seen Jersey Boys twice. I saw it in West Palm Beach, Florida. I saw the touring production. I did not see it on Broadway. I saw the touring production in West Palm Beach, Florida, and then out here in Las Vegas. Hands down, my favorite Broadway production that I have ever seen. And I probably saw you out here in Vegas when you were playing the Joe Pesci character. Because this is probably now, I would say 7 years ago.
Yeah, the math would be about right. Yeah,
when it was at the Paris. And it's funny because you don't see, because Jersey Boys had a good long run over at the Paris, and a lot of times Broadway productions here in Las Vegas, which is why they built the Smith Center here for the performing arts, Broadway shows have a tendency to not last on the Strip. I know they have tried them. They had Avenue Q that I believe was at the Wynn for a stretch. I mean, what made Jersey Boys so successful being on the Strip in Las Vegas, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, the Broadway show on the Strip trend in Las Vegas lasted anywhere from, depending on who you talk to, about 10 to 15 years. And some shows were much more successful than others. I think that one of the main reasons that Jersey Boys was such a huge success was that it had songs that were recognizable. People could come and enjoy the show, be taken away, transported to a time and a music that they recognized, that they enjoyed. But also the story is really, really great. And it's a true story. And it kind of fits with the life in Las Vegas. There's actually a reference to Vegas in the show a couple of times. And, but of all the shows I've been in, Jersey Boys has probably been the most well thought through show. I've never been in a show. I've been in a lot of great shows, and I love all the shows I've been in. I really do. There's only a few that I could say that I didn't really enjoy the show itself, but Jersey Boys, I've never experienced, and maybe because I spent more time with it, but I've never experienced a show that where every word in the script, every note that we sing, every bit of choreography, every step of staging that we have in the show is so well thought through and calculated. It all fits. It all makes sense. And you don't find a show like that. It's hard to find those kinds of shows anymore because I feel like oftentimes they fast track shows that they think will be successful to Broadway before they really think through every little moment and every little note. But Jersey Boys as a show is one of the most perfect, Broadway musicals I think that's been put together ever. It's a great combination of music and storytelling. And the great thing is it's a true story. They didn't have to make things up. They take a little bit of liberty with the timelines and things like that. But
sure,
for the most part, everything you see in the show that happened.
Now explain to the people who have not seen Jersey Boys or are not completely familiar with the story of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. You mentioned the Joe Pesci character.
Uh-huh.
And I had no idea. The first time I saw Jersey Boys, I had no idea that Joe Pesci had any input or influence on this band.
Yeah, these guys, they were just guys from Belleville, New Jersey, just outside of Newark. They grew up in this, Italian neighborhood. They were all friends. They all knew each other. And as they started exploring and doing the music thing, they expanded out and met other people. And during this time, Joe Pesci was friends with Bob Gaudio, who was wrote most of the music and songs that Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons sang. Who was a teenager at the time. He was he was a teenager, but he'd had a hit, Short Shorts, and so Pesci at one point introduced Bob Gaudio to the guys. At the time, there were only three of them, and
only 3 seasons.
Yeah, only 3 seasons. They weren't seasons
yet.
Yeah.
Summer, winter, and fall. They didn't care for spring.
But you could say that Bob Gaudio ushered in the and that's what they do in our show, that he ushered in the summer of their career. It was meant to be. It was meant to be.
Now, how did that work for you? Because you studied in high school. It was when you started getting interested in doing theater, and then you ended up going on to college where you ended up meeting your wife, and then that's when you really started to get traction and just go nuts. Because you started I was looking here, 1998 was your first professional acting job. Now, so now you're getting set to. I want to go to Jersey Boys here for a second. You're auditioning for this. Was Frankie Valli there?
No. So the way it worked, my very first audition for Jersey Boys, I auditioned for the show for 8 years on and off before I actually got into the show, if you can believe it. My first audition for the show was before the show had its kind of out-of-town tryout / workshop sort of experience. And that took place at La Jolla, which is in San Diego. And I had just graduated or was just graduating at the time from college, and our senior showcase had done a performance in New York City when they invite casting directors and people of influence to come and see the new up and coming young, people, and hopefully. And one of the casting directors came and for the show, saw our workshop, our showcase, and invited me to come and do an audition. And at the time, nobody knew what Jersey Boys was. He just said, bring something that's falsetto. And I thought, okay. So, at that time I was kind of unprepared. I wasn't terrible, but it wasn't a great showing. And then eventually the show opened, and I realized, oh, this is what that was for. And I got to know the show more. And so through the years, I got more prepared. And eventually, when the timing was right, we were in Las Vegas still. I was doing Lion King at the time, and Lion King was closing at the end of the month. My wife was pregnant with our daughter, who was due at that same time. And neither of us had a job as soon as Lion King was closing. And it so happened that Jersey Boys was having their regular auditions they do every 6 months to a year for the Vegas company. And I had been in, like I said, for 8 years. I'd gone in, and I thought, I just don't think they like me. I don't think it's good. Even though I knew in my heart, I was like, I know I'm right for this. So
you keep showing up, and they keep looking up, going, "Oh, Aaron DeJesus.
Well, that's what happened.
It's you again."
Yeah, I walked, and the casting director was like, "Hi, Aaron." So they knew me.
Right.
I had been to what they call Frankie Camp, which is a 3-day intensive kind of callback situation where you spend a day singing through the music. You spend a day with one of the directors working the scenes, and a day with the associate choreographer going through the dance steps. And they just kind of watch you and see, how do you do? How can they do this? Then they tell you, it's not an audition. It's not an audition. And of course they're watching going, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they're jotting everything down. Exactly. So,
yeah.
So now, is there you and a bunch of other people that are trying out for the same roles?
Yeah. So when I went to Frankie Camp, there were 8 of us. And we all were the same height and looked pretty much the same. And and so we spent, and it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. They actually flew, like I wasn't in New York at the time, so they flew those of us that were not in New York. They flew us out. They put us up for the 3 days, and this was 3 years before I got into the show. And afterwards, I was talking to the casting director. I said, "So, do I continue to audition? Do you keep me on file? How does this work now that I've done this?" And she said, "Well, you don't have to come to open calls anymore. We'll keep you on file, and we'll call you in."
Right.
They never called. And so, I was in Las Vegas. I was going to the auditions. Then they said I didn't have to, but I did. And my agent called me and said, "They're having another audition." And I was like, okay. And I decided this is the last time I'm going in. If they don't see that, after 8 years of doing this, I was about ready to give up. And, I kind of broke rules of auditioning. When you go to an open call, and an open call means that anybody can come, right? Any person can walk in off the street and just audition if they want to. They told me I didn't have to do that. I did that. When you go to an audition, usually the first audition you go to, they don't like you to sing a song from the show. They want to see you, sing a song, your own material, something that's similar in style, perhaps, so they can envision you kind of in the show. Right. And I've been doing that for 8 years, and I thought, no. So I picked the hardest song in the show, and I worked on that. And I
which
it's called Moody's Mood. It's he sings it in a jazz club setting in the show. It's kind of a jazz version of "I'm in the Mood for Love."
Okay.
There's a long story behind it. There was this famous saxophonist, Moody, who did this, and one of his friends took the music, recorded it, and wrote down the notes, and then wrote lyrics to it because it was so cool. And so there's, we do that in the show. And it's by far, in my opinion, like the hardest, most technically difficult, song to sing in the show. And so I walked into the audition, and she said, "Hi, Aaron." Like they knew me. "Hi, what are you going to sing today?" "I'm going to sing Moody's Mood." "Oh, you're going to sing from the show?" And I said, "Yes."
Yeah, because everything else I sang hasn't worked out the past 8 years.
And she said, "You know what? We've seen you enough." Okay. And I was like, "Great." And so I sang, and she said, "That sounds great. Thank you." And I said, "Thank you." And she said, "Why don't you sing Walk Like a Man?" And so I sang Walk Like a Man, which is another one of the harder songs in the show, and got done with that. And she was like, this is great. And she said, "Why don't you go out and work on the scenes, and we'll bring you back in." And one thing led to another. I came back in, I did the scenes. They were like, great. Can you be in New York in a few weeks for a final callback? And I said, yes, as long as it's not this particular Thursday, because my wife is due. We're having an induced labor because our doctor's going to be out of town. So I have to be here for the birth of my daughter. And she looked at me and said, Aaron, it's that date. And I thought, oh. So I'm thinking, okay, it's just not meant to be, right?
Right.
So I called my wife, Gail, and I said, this is what happened. And she said, you know what? Tell her you're going to be there. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, we'll figure this out. Tell her you're going to be there. And I thought, okay. So I ran back to the studio and I said, you know what? I'm going to be there. And she said, perfect. She said, I think it'll be worth your while. Anyway, long story short, I flew out. My wife was in and out of labor the whole time I was gone, of course. But I got back just in time. The next morning, we went to the hospital, started the process, and they called. My phone lit up 30 minutes before our daughter was born. My wife was in full labor, breathing and everything. And my phone lights up, and I show my wife, and she's like, "Go take it." So I ran out, and I took the call, and she said, "Do you have a baby yet?" And I said, "Almost." She's like, "Great. Well, they're going to offer you a job. Congratulations." And so I ran back in, and literally less than 30 minutes later, our daughter was born, and the rest, as they say, is history. That's
a pretty good day.
Yeah, that started my.
That's a pretty good day. You
Yeah.
get the gig as Frankie Valli in Jersey Boys, and your daughter's born, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now I'm assuming that Frankie has seen you.
Yeah. So to answer your question, Frankie hasn't. At the very beginning, he was a little more involved in the audition process, but now he leaves that to the casting people and to the creatives of the show. But we see him every once in a while. And the first time he saw me play him was when I was on tour, and it was in Thousand Oaks, California, where he lives nearby in Southern California. And he came and saw the show, and I wasn't supposed to know, but of course, no one was supposed to know, so everybody knew.
Right.
And I was literally 30 seconds from walking out on stage for the first time, and I overheard someone say, "Oh, I ran into Frankie. Did you see that he's here?" And I said, "Excuse me?" And they were like, "Oh, we weren't supposed to tell you." And I was like, "Okay." So I got ready to go on. I took my 10 seconds to go, and then I just kind of centered myself and did my best to just do my show.
Sure.
And he's very gracious. He's very kind. He's super supportive of the show. The show has done nothing but, promote his career even more. He's still touring. He's still touring, and still, at 80, what is he now? 80. I can't even remember. He was born in 30.
Yeah, I've seen his name pop up here in Vegas where, he's still doing shows, which is.
Yeah, he's in his mid 80s. He's still touring. He's still going. So through the years, I've been able to see him several times over 8.5, 9 years. We've seen him at most of the openings of the productions I've been in. He comes. The last time I saw him, was that the last time? No, there was another time. But when we reopened the show off-Broadway, he came and sat in on one of our rehearsals before the show had even opened. Right. And he was very pleased. He was very happy with, what he was seeing. So
what's the first thing that he said to you when you come off stage, you're done, the production's over, he comes back? What's the first thing that he said? Did he bust your chops at all? I mean, no. I would hope that as a Jersey guy, he would have went, "I don't even know who you think you're trying to play, but that is not even close to me." Just for that split second to have that reaction, because that's what I would do if I saw somebody playing me. Yeah, that's exactly what I would say. And I go, "No, I'm just kidding. You did a fantastic job."
He was a little quiet. He was like, "You did a nice job," He had his girlfriend with him at the time. She usually comes along, and she's a sweetheart, just a wonderful lady. And we chatted for a little bit, and I'm not like, I try not to be the starstruck kind of, he's a human. He's superhuman, but he's still a guy. And so I didn't want to press anything, but he was complimentary in a very subtle way. And then afterwards, he had sort of moved on to talk to someone else, and his girlfriend came up to me. She said, "You were really great. Oh my goodness, you were wonderful." She was super sweet and kind of gave me the gush that you want to get, from someone like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, did you guys hang out and go to dinner or something afterwards, or was it just kind of a very casual, "Hey, great job," and then he moved on? It's very casual. And I don't know why he bothered even talking to anybody else. I mean, once you talk with you, why bother?
That's right.
Just leave.
But no, the great thing about Jersey Boys is, like I said, it's been around for, since 2004. So, oh my gosh, it's all out of whack. But yeah, since 2004, Jersey Boys has been around. So there've been a lot of guys and girls that have cycled through different companies like me. I've been in 4 different companies, technically speaking. And so there are people that he's met through the years that bounce around to different companies. So at one point we had his granddaughter, Olivia, in the show at off-Broadway, and she was playing the role of her very own grandmother. And
that's
that was
pretty surreal. That's cool. Yeah.
And so, who was Frankie's wife, right?
Right.
So it was really cool, having her along. I got to know her and her mother, who's Frankie's daughter, and it was really cool to kind of have that personal connection to him and to the story in a way that I'd never had before. And it was, that's been one of the coolest and most rewarding parts of doing the show.
Now, how many of these touring productions go out when everything is running full tilt and this thing is moving and Broadway is back running full speed the way it normally should? How many shows of Jersey Boys are out at any given time?
Okay. So it's changed through the years. At one point there was Broadway, Vegas, 2 tours, UK, like West End, London. There may have been a UK tour at that same time. At the most, there were 7 or 8 companies worldwide going. Right now, when we closed, there was off-Broadway, national tour. They've recently licensed the show with Norwegian Cruise Lines. So there was a Norwegian company, Norwegian Cruise Line company.
Sure.
And I want to say that there may have been a UK tour going at that point.
Yeah, people forget how much is involved in something like this. I mean, This is a massive undertaking. When you look at the crew, the actors, the singers, I mean, just the production and the set building and transportation and getting this stuff out, it's quite an undertaking.
It's a lot. It's a lot. When the show was at its biggest, physically and at its popularity, probably like in 2007 or 8, maybe 2010, when the show was huge. There was a Chicago company too. The national tour had anywhere from 8 to 10 semi trucks that would transport everything.
Sure.
And, that's a big expense. And by the time I was on tour, they had figured out how to narrow it down to 5 or 6 trucks, if I remember correctly. But after a while, they start figuring out ways to, save money. And they do their best not to take away from the grandiosity and the integrity of the show. And I think they've done a pretty darn good job of doing that through the years.
They do a fantastic job.
When they downsized it, we're off Broadway now. And for your viewers, the difference between a Broadway show and an off-Broadway show has nothing to do with location or talent or anything like that. It's literally how many seats are in the theater. So a Broadway theater has 500 plus seats in the theater.
Right.
And off-Broadway has 499 down to, I believe, 300. And then an off-Broadway goes 299 down to like 200, I think is what it is. Okay. And so on and so forth. So what happens is those divisions basically kind of relegate the contracts that we work on.
Sure.
All right. So it takes a big budget show and makes the budget smaller, which means the pay is a little less. But
just based on the number of seats you can sell. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think it's a great thing. And we're now in, I've played when I was on tour, I literally played theaters that sat 8,000 people. Right. Most of the time it was like 2,500, the theaters across America. Right. But now we're in a space that seats 498. And so everybody's close. Even the balcony is very, very close. But it's cool because in a situation like that, the show's a little more intimate. The story reads a little bit better. and people have a much closer kind of personal connection with what's going on and with the show itself.
Now, when does it? And by the way, for the record, as a comedian, my venues are off Broadway. I only do venues, Aaron, that are like maybe 24 seats to 3.
3 folding chairs.
3 folding chairs.
And a banquet table.
And that's it. Sometimes the banquet table doesn't even make it in. Sometimes it does get that bad. So when does this? As we record this here in August 2021, when does Broadway start back up for you with Jersey Boys?
So Broadway, the governor of New York announced a couple months ago that Broadway can return.
You mean which governor? You mean the one that just resigned?
I can't remember if it was the governor or the mayor, but anyway, an announcement was made.
The governor of New York, not the most popular dude in the world right now. We'll say mayor.
The announcement was made. The announcement was made that Broadway can open as soon as September 15th.
Okay.
And immediately 2 or 3 big shows announced they will open right on that date or within a week or so. And then slowly other shows have announced. And so I would say about half a dozen shows, big Broadway shows, will open within 2 weeks of that, September 15th. And then some more have announced that they'll open in October. Our show decided to wait a little bit. And so Jersey Boys will open at New World Stages on November 15th. That's the announcement that we made. And considering kind of the resurgence with this Delta variant and all that kind of stuff, it probably was a wise move to kind of see what happens, watch the other shows kind of test the waters of dealing with the protocols and all of that. So at this point, though, they're requiring mask wearing. They will be in September. They've already decided that.
Right.
And also, I believe they'll be requiring immunizations to, if you want to go see the show, they're asking that you be immunized and wear masks to help protect the population. And
sure.
I know that out here in the West, there's different opinions on all of it.
Sure.
But having lived in New York through this whole thing, it had a great impact, a huge impact on the economy, on the city, on that part of the country, because the population density is so much greater. And it's hard to imagine for someone that lives in the West because everything is so spacious, and I get it because I grew up out here.
Right.
But like literally when you walk out the door in New York City, you're immediately surrounded by anywhere from dozens to thousands of people.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on where you live and where you work. And riding the subway, you're crammed into a subway car with 200 people maybe. And so it's impossible to control or to, an airborne, outbreak of anything.
Sure.
Without just like saying, everybody stay home for a while, and so it's been tough. It's been really tough. But it's been also good to see the city starting to come back little by little. There was a time when, about 2 months into the pandemic, we had to go into Midtown Manhattan for something, and it looked like a ghost town.
A ghost town. I've heard stories. Friends of mine that live there.
I never thought I would ever see Times Square with less than, a dozen people. There were I could see 2 or 3 people in Times Square. And I thought at this time of day, on this day, there would be tens of thousands of people here. On any given day, there are thousands of people on the slowest day. And the last time I was in the city was maybe a month and a half ago. And it was about half. I feel like there were about half the numbers of people.
It's coming back. I mean, it's good to see that, that excitement start to come back into the city and to see people that are like, whatever your thoughts are on being vaccinated. I mean, and wearing a mask and stuff like that. As long as people feel comfortable enough to be in that environment, that's the most.
Yeah. And it will bounce back.
Yeah.
New York always will. And then the rest of the country, the world's going to bounce back. Things are going to be a little different perhaps, but not to the point where we can't still live our lives. So
no, still exist and go see great shows like Jersey Boys. By the way, find you online, AaronDeJesusOnline.com. Find him. All his social media stuff is on there. So you can follow him on Instagram.
Yep.
Facebook. What else? What else are you on that I'm missing? I know there's like a million different platforms.
I keep Facebook more private for like friends and family.
Gotcha.
But, Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram, if you send me a message, I usually respond within a couple of days. So I'm happy. Instagram, Aaron.dejesus. And I love having followers and I love talking to people and fans. It's been one of the joys of being an actor and doing shows like this is connecting with people that I wouldn't otherwise get to connect with, and seeing how the arts, theater, film, television, all of the things that we do have an impact on the world. And I don't say that to be like, oh, I have an impact on the world, but like, it's amazing to see when people are moved by things and what kind of connections people have to the music and to the story. And it has the potential to make a difference in people's lives, even if it's just to lift their spirits for,
I agree completely. No, that's, if anybody needs to have their mind removed from a situation, it's everybody now.
Yep.
You got to be able to go to a show, whether it's a play on Broadway or a comedy show or a rock concert, whatever it is, and just kind of, pull your brain back and just block out all the nonsense that's been going on. And I've had the pleasure. It's funny because it's funny that I'm sure I saw you in Vegas when you were playing Joe Pesci in Jersey Boys. But the first time we had a chance to meet was doing a private party.
That's right.
Over outside of Fairfax, Virginia, for mutual friends of ours. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm looking at the list because I was hosting the event. I was the MC, and I'm like, okay, Aaron DeJesus, Gail Bennett. Okay, cool. It's you and your wife. You're gonna go and sing. And I'm like, this guy's been in Jersey Boys. Okay, they didn't pull him out of like the Fairfax Community Players. This guy's legit. And so it was so cool to see you and your wife singing. And I mean, it was one of those unexpected moments. The first time I saw you sing, and I've seen you a couple times at this particular event that we've been to. Mm-hmm. And it was just fantastic. I mean, just amazing to see. I mean, you're literally on a pool deck.
Yeah.
Doing this.
It's a nice pool deck.
It's a nice pool deck. It's a really nice pool deck. Yeah. It's not a pool deck at a Super 8.
No,
not at all. It's a very, very nice pool deck. But it was a great, fun, surreal experience to be a part of. And I got to look at, because I was looking at your bio here, and there's some, aside from playing Jersey Boys and the number of productions that you've been involved, you have played 13 different animals on stage for pay.
I think it's so funny you bring that up. Nobody ever talks about that, but I thought it was a thing to put in.
You've played 13 different animals on stage. Can you name all the animals that you played?
Oh, man, okay. It's going to take me a second. That's so funny. Like when I made the decision to become an actor,
right?
Like if you had told me that I would have been, paid to play through the years animals on stage, I would be like, that's not what I was. I didn't become an actor to play an animal, but like, yeah, it just happened that way. So let's see. Maybe I'll go backwards. So in Lion King, obviously, I played Timon, who's a meerkat, and before I played Timon, I played Ed, who's the hyena, and Ed understudied Timon, and Zazu, the hornbill bird, which is the third animal that I played, going backwards. In Wicked, I played like a rat, this giant rat that was like a waiter or something like that in the ensemble. And did I play anything? Another funky? Oh yeah, I manipulated a lion cub or some sort of a cat cub puppet in Wicked at one point. So I played like this baby lion or something like that. So that's 5 right there in 2
That's impressive.
2 humongous
monster productions.
Shows.
Yeah, Lion King and Wicked. So I mean, did you show up and they're like, all right, today you got to be the rat? Yeah,
well, they're like, okay, this is when you're wearing your rat costume. I'm like, rat costume? But yeah, like in the world of Wicked, some humans are starting to become animals in some parts of Oz, right. And so that's part of the kind of the storytelling of Wicked. And so there are people that are becoming animals.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I think during lockdown, plenty of people became animals.
Yeah.
For all the wrong reasons. Now I gotta. Okay, so
I may have become more of a slug, to be quite honest with you.
I got zero issue with that. I'm like, during the lockdown, I'm sitting back. I'm going, all right, well, I'm going to watch some TV. I'm going to do a whole lot of nothing. So let me ask you this. This cracks me up. You've run 3 half marathons, even though you hate running.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you?
I know, right?
That's like me saying I hate Thai food and going to eat Thai food every single day.
So my wife is big time runner. She's been a runner all her life, and she gets great joy and great satisfaction and great mental clarity
from running,
mental health from running. And
those people baffle me. Aaron.
I know, right? What?
That just to me, they're unicorns. I don't even see them existing on this plane.
Right. So I at one point, though, I think it was when I was on tour with Wicked, I decided that I needed some sort of an exercise. And I thought I'd give running a try. I think I had been speaking, with my wife about it, but also one of the guys that I was on tour with, he was an older gentleman, not like super old, but like he was probably 15 years older than me.
Right.
And he was running and he was in great shape and he was like, it's good for, and so I thought I'd give it a try. So I went and I got some nice shoes, which anytime people ask me about running, get nice shoes. Spend the $150 on a nice pair of shoes. It's going to make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, don't go to Walmart and grab those
no.
$9.88 price rollback ones.
It's like anything else. You start from the ground up foundation.
Sure.
If you don't have a good foundation, then everything's going to fall apart. So I went to this running store and I ran on a treadmill and they kind of filmed my gait and turns out that I pronate a little bit, which means that my ankles kind of turn in a little,
Right.
And so they got me a shoe that helps deal with that, which is an easy thing. It's not difficult to find. A lot of people pronate. That's what it's called, pronating. So anyways, I got a nice pair of running shoes and I started running and I thought, this is kind of nice. And I ran my first kind of organized run and it was kind of exciting being at the starting line with all these people and I ran and I did okay. I'm for
right.
Your viewers at home, they don't know I'm 5'4". I'm extremely short. I'm exceptionally short. And I'm just not built really for long distance running. My wife is tall and long and lean. She's like built for it. I'm a sprinter, but I kind of pushed myself and started doing it. And then it became for me a challenge. I like a good challenge. I like doing things, accomplishing things that are difficult, even though I hate, I don't enjoy it. And so, but I like looking back and going, I did that,
No, it's great to have that sense of accomplishment to look back at.
That's satisfying. So that's kind of my thing. I haven't run. I had knee surgery in 2014, and I haven't done a big run since then. I've run like 5Ks and things like that.
Sure.
But I ran 3 half marathons, and that's as far as I ever want to run. I have
that's 13.1 miles. I
have zero desire to do a full marathon or anything more than that.
No, that's just dumb.
What happens is I get out there and like I said, the starting line, the energy at the start is very, very exciting and it's very fun. And it's like, everybody's there to challenge themselves. It's a very positive, it's a positive place. And it's not like I've never done, I don't run the Boston Marathon or anything like that, but it's usually the runs I do are fun. But like you start the race and for the first 2 or 3 miles, you're like, yeah. And you're running and there's people on the sides. And I did the Disney runs, 2 of the Disney runs in Disney World, and they're fantastic. They entertain you the whole time. And then I did the Vegas half marathon. But it happened every single time. I got to about mile 8 and I was like, why did I pay for this? I can't believe I shelled out $150 to do this to myself. And then I was like, I'm stuck. I got to finish it. And so
you're over halfway in. What are you going to do now?
And in Vegas, the 8-mile mark is somewhere downtown in the middle of nowhere, and it is disgusting.
Yeah, you don't stop. You don't stop there. That's your best time.
I gotta get out here,
That's your best time. The 8-mile mark, you're like, man, I ran 4-minute miles from mile 8 to 10 in the crappy part of Vegas. Yeah, you're gonna step on it. Now you were out here for a while. Did you gamble? Did you have any did anything kind of bring you in that are the normal vices here in Vegas, or no?
I'm an atypical Vegas person. I don't drink, I don't party, I don't gamble. I didn't do any of that stuff.
Right.
But we sure did love. So we were in Vegas. We were residents of Nevada for about 10 years. We owned a house in Vegas for 9 of those years, and lived in Vegas full time for about 8 of those years.
Right.
So we consider ourselves, Nevada residents, and Vegas was home for 10 years, for 10 calendar years.
Right.
And we loved our time in Vegas. We were just down there yesterday. What's today? Monday? Yeah. So visiting old friends, and it was funny. We drove by the old house and some of the old neighborhoods and places we used to go. We showed our daughter. She was born in Las Vegas, but we left when she was 3.5.
Right.
But she still is very loyal. She feels like Vegas is where I was born. And so we showed her around. We went by the hospital where she was born. And we loved that time in our lives. And we looked at each other and thought that was a time in our life, our married life, our family life. And we have kind of moved on.
Sure.
And, but it was interesting to go through that experience. We loved it. The great thing about Vegas is, even if you're not into gaming or anything like that, there's always a new restaurant. There's always a new show. There's always a new attraction. Every year or two, there's a new casino. So there's always something new to see and do in Las Vegas. I've never been or seen a city that changes more drastically and more rapidly than Las Vegas does. That's why, I say the trend of Broadway shows in Vegas was really not very long lived. It was 10 to 15 years, depending on, who you talk to. But,
sure.
We were there for a big chunk of that. And that's why we were there. We moved to Vegas for my wife to be into producers. Fantastic show. Not the best show for Vegas. It only lasted about a year, not even a year and a half. And then I got into Spam a lot there. A better show for Vegas, but still, you find in Vegas, it's not like shows on Broadway or other shows are there and they run until they stop making money.
Right.
In Vegas, the casino may decide they just want something different. Has nothing to do with ticket sales. Has to do with getting bodies across that threshold.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the whole. The whole way of Vegas does things. Whatever they can do to get bodies into the casino, it's better for business all around. So many will gamble, so many will eat in the restaurants, so many will get drinks at the bars. It's and so once you get those extra, however many 2,000 bodies to come in,
sure,
to go see Lion King, there's a great chance that other things are going to happen. And so, Lion King was a perfect example. We were doing great. Ticket sales averaged 70 to 80% when the show was closing, but they wanted to put that Michael Jackson Cirque du Soleil show in there. They decided that's what they wanted. And so they wanted to bring, something different, something new. And so,
sure.
it was fun to go back and see how much change has happened, because there's always change in Vegas, and to know that we were a part of something that happened, an interesting
something huge.
Yeah.
Now you're into sports. Do you watch sports? Did you bet on sports at all when you were here? We didn't.
I never bet on sports. I've always been a big fan of. I like basketball.
Right.
I'm athletic, so I love playing sports.
Right.
But in the last like maybe 5 to no, I guess more like 10 to 12 years, I've gotten into more into watching football, NFL football.
Right.
And, I know that's politically whatever, people have their opinions, but to me, it gives me a great sense of satisfaction. And having grown up in the West here and not having a team that was close to me, really
sure.
close. My wife is from Wisconsin. I like Aaron Rodgers. I think he has a good name. And I've kind of become a Packers fan. And the Packers are fun to be, it's a fun team to be a.
If your wife is from Wisconsin and you're not going to be a Packers fan, you're just in for a real long 4 months of your marriage every single year. Which, by the way, if you ever decided to bet on sports. Our good friends at VegasSportsAdvantage.com are fantastic people. If it's a great service to use, these guys study analytics like it is nobody's business. Football season coming up. They go absolutely crazy. VegasSportsAdvantage.com. They will make you money. They literally, I have a friend of mine who works for them. Aaron, I'm telling you, he was telling me for baseball season, they literally analyze like who the home plate umpire is going to be and how big or how small his strike zone is.
Wow.
To determine whether they'll pick a game. This is exactly how detail-oriented they are. VegasSportsAdvantage.com. Now,
I had never, just to continue that conversation, I had never been a baseball fan, but again, my wife, my father-in-law, baseball was his life, his passion, right?
Right.
And so since I've been married, I've never been to a single major league game in my life until I married my wife. And I had a count at one point, but I've been to like 15 or 18 different now major league ballparks across the country. Because when I was on tour, or when I would go visit her on tour, we would go and see a baseball game. And so I've been to parks all over the country, and I enjoy very much, all of that.
The experience.
Yeah, the experience.
The experience itself makes it worth. I mean, I can't sit. I would rather just, watch this ant crawl across my floor right now than to watch 9 innings of a baseball game on television.
I know. It's slow and it's hard.
I can't. Just that anemic pace is like I've seen glaciers move quicker than this.
Yeah. But I grew up as a Utah Jazz fan, and this year I was super excited. I've started to get back into watching the Jazz. They were great this year. They've been great for the last few years, and we'll see what happens this coming. They got really close this year, so I've kind of like rekindled my Utah Jazz fandom in the last couple of years, and that's been kind of fun. There was more time during COVID. That's the thing. Like when you're in a show nights, that's when all the games happen. And so you don't get to pay attention so much. But this during the pandemic, I had plenty of time to watch all the games.
More than enough time.
Yeah.
Well, now two questions here before we wrap up. When going to your point where you're talking about when shows are in production. So when everything is going full tilt, and you are what is your typical day like from when you wake up until the show is over? Because people think, they get there an hour beforehand, makeup, blah, 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 leave. Right. So there's so much more involved with this.
There is. So like when you get hired, they basically kind of take a mental image of you, and you're expected to keep yourself in the image that they hired you. So if I say weighed like 135 pounds when I got hired, they expect you to stay at 135 pounds when you got hired, because they're going to spend $12,000 on costumes, fitting you, tailoring to your size. And when you start gaining weight or losing weight even, it costs them money to either buy new costumes or to have them re-tailored.
Yeah, so that's true. You start porking out all of a sudden.
They'll and
someone's mad.
Some shows and some roles are a little more flexible, but you're part of my job is my image, right?
Right.
Physical, my voice, all those things. So in Jersey Boys, for example, playing Frankie Valli is widely considered one of the most difficult vocal roles in all of musical theater history. So there are things that I have to do to keep myself healthy. I have to make sure I'm well hydrated. I have to get enough sleep. You have to really take care of your body and your instrument, because that is why they hired you.
Right.
So when I was on tour, being in a different city every week is more taxing on your body than anybody would realize. Just taking a flight, a 2 to 3 hour flight, does more to your body than anybody would ever realize, unless you're very in tune with your body. And so I had a very set schedule, and you get home late and you wind down and you go to sleep. But I call it being stingy with my sleep. I have to get, 7 to 8 hours. I have to. If I don't, my body doesn't recover enough. I don't have the strength, the stamina. I have to exercise. I have to keep the body moving, and it's all connected, right? I have to eat right. Certain foods, I have a touch of acid reflux, so I have to be careful with what I eat.
Sure.
And so there are all these things that, when I was on tour, I was kind of living like a monk. I rarely, a lot of people, when you're in the ensemble and less of the show is on your shoulders, for lack of a better phrase, right? You can go out and party after the show for 2 or 3 hours or all night if you want, and the next day and be okay dancing on stage, because even if you have a little headache or whatever, no one's going to notice, right?
Right.
But like if I lose my voice because I went out clubbing, for 4 hours after a show, screaming and dancing and all that kind of stuff, and I come back and try to do the show with half a voice, they're going to notice that, right?
Oh yeah.
So you have to take care of yourself. And so when I was on tour, I did very little. I tried to like sightsee maybe a little during the day and things like that. But like I said, I'm not a partier anyway, so it kind of worked out. I don't feel like I missed out on anything. I missed out a little bit on the social interaction that you get when you're on tour with a group of people. And when I would show up to something, it was a big deal. Oh, you're here. Oh, that's great. But I did miss out a little bit on that. But I loved being on tour. It's really a lot of fun.
So when do you have to show up at the theater? I mean, so say it's an 8 o'clock production, doors open at 7 or whatever. And when do you need to be there as a principal character to start getting ready?
Unless you have an earlier call for, say, a special makeup thing that you have to be in the chair for 45 minutes or something.
Right.
The union required time of arrival is a half hour before curtain.
Okay.
I like to arrive an hour before curtain because I like to come and I like to take a little time to allow the things of the world to kind of fade away. Gives me time to focus and get ready at my own pace. I don't like being in a hurry. I feel like I forget things if I'm in a hurry. And so I like to be there early. It actually gives me an opportunity to connect with the people around me more, because once the show starts, I'm kind of
you're in a zone.
In the zone. Yeah. I don't have a lot of time backstage ever to socialize and all sorts of things. And so I get a great deal of that and that camaraderie before the show. Because oftentimes after the show, people are like gone, they're skedaddled.
Right.
And so that's another reason why I like arriving a little early. I can, be a part of the group, the crew, the costume crew, the
camaraderie and the fellowship and everything else, and just developing, friendships and things like that, which is cool.
And at the same time, I'm preparing, emotionally and mentally and physically for the performance. I'll stretch.
Yeah, it's a long production. You're Frankie Valli in Jersey Boys.
Yeah,
you're kind of a key element.
Yeah, I train vocally while I'm doing the show twice a week with a vocal coach and a teacher who specializes in rock and roll singing, and she's been working with all of the Frankie Vallis since the beginning of the show on Broadway. And so I've been working with her for 8.5, 9 years, and she's wonderful. Her name is Katie Agresta. She has made an amazing career out of working with rock and pop singers. You may have heard of a couple of her students of many years, John Bon Jovi, Cindy
Never heard of them. No idea who you're talking about.
She's been.
Why don't you give me some real people?
And her students, if they stay with her, they're still singing. John's still touring and singing. Cindy still sings.
Oh yeah,
like they're still going, and she's a big part of. Has been a big part of the journey for me as well.
Well, now, aside from your singing, looking at your resume here, under special skills and hobbies, you do basic tumbling and stage combat. So when you say stage combat, you're like kind of the guy I want in a bar fight if I'm not really going to get in a bar fight.
Stage combat, intimidation. No.
Explain that.
A 5'4" guy is not going to intimidate anybody.
Listen, there's a lot of UFC fighters that are not tall people, and they cause some damage. So listen, true. I'm not going to underestimate you. That's why I'm trying to find out exactly how much I can mess with you the next time I see you in public or see you in person.
No, so like several of the shows through the years, you have to learn stage combat, sword fighting, or actual fist fighting, those sorts of things. And
right.
I did West Side Story. I've done some Shakespeare through the years. Some of that Spanish Golden Age theater that I did. We did some sword fighting, things like that. You learn it's basic fencing, but it's stage fighting. So the idea is behind stage fighting is that whoever is the victim, the person that's losing, you could say, is in control. You always keep a safe contact. You keep a safe distance. So if by chance you slash your sword at someone and they miss the block, you don't actually hit them, right? So there are things about stage combat. It's tricky because you want to make it look exciting and real.
Sure. But
you also have to have safety is always first. Safety is always first. And if someone feels unsafe, then something's wrong. And so you have to address that. And so, but I feel like, usually the shows and stage combat, if you hire a great combat choreographer, they can keep it exciting and fun and still keep it very safe. So.
Well, the cool thing is to maintain a good relationship with everybody that you're fighting.
That's right.
So you don't legitimately want to be mad at them, which is why you show up an hour early to bring donuts.
I've seen it where, and I've also seen it where people get so caught up in the emotion of the moment.
Right.
You have to remember you're still acting.
Yeah.
That they've missed or they've actually struck somebody, and you have to be just so very careful. You have to be very careful.
Whoops.
So, yeah.
That's a big whoops. Now as an actor starting out, final question here.
Sure.
You had to be, you're living in a, apartment, wherever. You're going on auditions. You're trying to make ends meet at the time.
Uh-huh.
You got to be creative with your eating, right? You're very minimalistic, I would imagine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just real quick, I'm going to pull out 3 items here.
Okay.
That may be found in your pantry.
Okay.
When you were an actor, and I'm going to have you do a quick chopped and tell me what you would do with these 3 things if you had to make a meal out of it.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Spam. All right. This fits right in your healthy wheelhouse.
Yep.
Skinny pop popcorn.
Okay.
All right, and sprinkles that you put on cupcakes and cookies like for the holidays.
Is that orange sprinkles?
This is red sprinkles.
Red. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Red sprinkles, spam, skinny pop popcorn.
And skinny pop popcorn.
What would you throw together, Aaron DeJesus?
All right. Spam is extremely greasy and a lot of people like it. I'm not a huge fan. But if I had to make a meal, what I would probably do is I would pop the popcorn first, and then while the popcorn is popping, I would cube up the spam and saute it in a pan. All right. And then once the popcorn's done and once the spam is browned, kind of on the outside, I would mix in the popcorn, and it would get a little soggy, but you're not going to eat it with your hands. You're going to eat it with a fork. And then if you have like a sweet tooth or something like that, when it's all sauteed and done, serve it, on a plate. And if you want to put sprinkles on top, you can. I would leave that optional though.
Well done, Aaron DeJesus. You are fantastic. You're not only an amazing performer, but a great person. Always enjoyed talking with you at those events that we've done in the past. And I wish you nothing but success. Jersey Boys opening back up on Broadway, November 15th.
That's
correct?
Right.
You can start going online and buying tickets now.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Fantastic. Aaron DeJesus, online.com is his website. And you can click on there and follow him on social media. Instagram is the best way. You're awesome, my friend. And I will, I'm going to have you over for dinner.
Please. Yeah.
There we go.
Spam and popcorn, baby.
Spam, skinny pop, and sprinkles.
Thanks for listening to A Drink with Derek. Find out when Derek is appearing near you by checking out DerekRichards.com. See you next time for A Drink with Derek.